call this my home, and I feel very privileged to be in this position and to have been elected by my peers. At this point, I do want to say thanks and invite some very esteemed speakers to the podium. And the first person I'd like to invite is the ambassador to the U.S. Embassy here in Tashkent and Cultural Affairs Officer, Ambassador Daniel Rosenblum.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, Aziz Tesol Katnashchilari, Aziz Mehmonlar. Good morning.
Good morning.
Conference participants and dear guests. I am Daniel Rosenblum, Ambassador of the United States in Uzbekistan, and I'm very happy to be with you today. I'm especially happy that such a prestigious English language conference as Tesol is being held in Tashkent. This is yet another, I'm going to put this up a little bit more, please. There we go. Good. This is yet another big step toward improving English language learning and teaching in Uzbekistan. I want to thank the Tesol International Organization, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Public Education, the Ministry of Higher Education, the regional English language officers who work for the U.S. State Department, who are based in Kazakhstan and Estonia, who are with us, I think are with us today. Yeah, there they are. I also want to thank American Councils, our partner that's making all of these possible and helping organize events like this. And of course, Inha University for hosting, and all of those that I just named for making this conference happen. Thank you. I know how hard it is to organize any conference, but especially one that is so broad as this. It takes not just funding, but it takes a lot of energy, motivation, dedication, hard work, and nerves of steel. So great job, everyone. I guess maybe the great job will be after the conference. We can really say that to see what the effect has been. Now, I know all of you here in this room today are going to have a wonderful experience filled with new ideas, excitement, and learning opportunities. I know that you will learn from your colleagues and in turn share your knowledge with them. Teaching English is not an easy task. Usually, students are at an age where they have a lot on their minds. They have a lot of other things, a lot of other distractions, and on top of all of that, we're asking them to learn a difficult language. And I also know that being a teacher is not an easy job. It's very hard, but also incredibly rewarding. And I know this in part because I come from a family of educators. My grandmother was a teacher, my mother was a teacher, and two of my three sisters also worked in education. So I have the greatest respect for all that you do.
Thank you.
The U.S. Embassy here in Tashkent is proud to support you in this work, and we're also proud of our efforts to improve English language learning, and those efforts have steadily increased in the last 4 years. Since the President of Uzbekistan and the President of the United States met in May of 2018, that was sort of the starting point. In the last 4 years, we've been able to welcome dozens of U.S. English teaching professionals to Uzbekistan, and we're making excellent progress working with the Ministry of Public Education in the nationwide English-Speaking Nation initiative to train 15,000 English teachers across Uzbekistan with the latest pedagogical and English teaching skills. In addition, through a partnership between USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, with the Ministry of Public Education, we have purchased and distributed English as a foreign language textbooks, workshops, and teacher guides for grades 1 through 11. And this is part of a comprehensive approach to improving English instruction that was piloted in over 200 schools last year, over this past academic year. And the ministry will begin to roll out it nationally in the next school year, starting in September. It's also worth mentioning the contribution of English language specialists who we've been able to bring to the effort to improve English language teaching, such as Dr. Chiesa, Dr. Bennett, Dr. Diefenbach, Dr. Broughton, who assisted the former Republican Innovation Center in compiling textbooks for universities and teacher training centers. And the U.S. Embassy is proud to be able to support yet another English language specialist for a textbook project initiated by Dr. Azizov. This conference today is part of our contribution, our embassy's contribution toward English language learning. We hope, as I said before, that it will help you to expand your network, and not only within Uzbekistan, but beyond, because today you're joined by peers from other Central Asian countries as well, and welcome to all of you. Warm welcome. You will all have opportunity to share your approaches and methods to teach and co-teach English, and I look forward to hearing after the conference of the increased collaboration coming out of these discussions during the conference. So again, thank you all. And taking this opportunity, I want to again thank Tesol International Organization once again for agreeing to bring Tesol to Uzbekistan. And we hope that a new brand, Tesol Tashkent, will be born among the Tesol family. E'tiboringiz uchun katta rahmat. Anjuman ishtirokchilariga omadlar tilayman.
It's wishing us good luck.
Thank you very much, and I wish success to all.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Rosenblum. At this point, and I'm going to do my best, I apologize, I'm going to work on this. I'd like to invite from the Ministry of Publication of Uzbekistan, the Deputy Minister, Mr. Usman Sharif Khatyev.
Assalamu alaikum, hurmatli tadbir ishtirokchilari. Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen, our guests. We're very happy to see you in our country. Avvalambor barcha bugun tadbir ishtirok etayotgan ustozlarimizni qutlamoqchiman va Amerika Qo'shma Shtatlari elchisi janob Rosenblumga o'z minnatdorchiligimni bildirmoqchiman, chunki haqiqatdan ham aytib o'tganlaridek O'zbekistonda oxirgi yillarda xorijiy tillarni o'rganishga qanday alohida e'tibor qaratilayotgan bo'lsa, bu borada ingliz tili fanini, ingliz tilini o'zini o'rganishga har tomonlama katta e'tibor qaratayotganligimizni ko'rishimiz mumkin. Bu yerda albatta Amerika Qo'shma Shtatlarining elchixonasini, hukumatini hissasi juda katta. Hurmatli elchimiz aytib o'tganlaridek, har tomonlama bu yerda metodikani rivojlantirish, o'qituvchilarning salohiyatini yaxshilash bo'yicha ham ko'p ishlar qilinmoqda. Ruxsat bersangiz bo'yicha alohida to'xtalib o'tmayman. Bugun bu regional konferensiyada to'plangan butun O'zbekistondan tashrif buyurgan xalq ta'limi xodimlari, umuman oliy ta'lim tizimini xodimlarini bitta jihatga e'tiboringlarni qaratmoqchi edim. Albatta bunday konferensiyada ishtirok etish avvalambor bu sizlarga imkoniyat ekanligini barchangiz to'g'ri tushunishingizni so'raydim va bu imkoniyatdan to'g'ri foydalanish kerak ekanligini so'rab qolardim. Chunki sizdek ingliz tili sohasida faoliyat olib boradigan o'qituvchilarimiz 50 mingga yaqin. Lekin aynan sizlar bu yerda bugun to'plandik. Va bu degani sizga bizni ham ishonchimiz, ham e'tirofimiz borligidan dalolatdir. Chunki eng zo'r o'qituvchilarimiz bugun xalqaro shu Tesol konferensiyasiga taklif etilgan va kelayotgan shu haftada bo'lib o'tadigan treninglarda ishtirok etish uchun taklif qilingansiz. Barchangizni bu jihatdan qutlagan holda oldinglarda yana bundan kattaroq mas'uliyat borligini aytmoqchiman. Chunki konferensiyada olgan bilimlaringlarni keyinchalik o'z hamkasblaringlarga yetkazish masalasida ham sizlar oldinglarda alohida bir mas'uliyat turganini eslatib o'taman. Chunki bu konferensiyada olingan bilimlar aynan tilni o'rgatish, xalqaro darajadagi zamonaviy metodikalarni bilish orqali sizlar keyinchalik o'z hamkasblaringlarga ham hududlarda qo'shimcha imkoniyat berishinglar mumkinligini tushunishimiz kerak. Albatta konferensiyada ishtirok etayotgan qo'shni mamlakatlarimiz bor. Ularga ham omad tilaymiz. Umuman bu konferensiya bir sabab, lekin asosiy masala bu barchanglar bir joyda to'plab o'z fikrlaringlarni, o'z tajribalarini almashishinglar. Shuning uchun bu konferensiyada ishtirok etayotganlar nomidan, Xalq ta'limi vazirligi nomidan men shu konferensiyani tashkil etayotgan barcha do'stlarimizga, kelgan barcha xalqaro konferensiyadagi ekspertlarga minnatdorchiligimni bildirib, ishinglarda omad tilab qolmoqchiman. Biz doimo ingliz tilini O'zbekistonda rivojlantirishga har tomonlama qo'llab-quvvatlashga tayyor ekanligimizni yana bir bor bildiraman va kelgusi yana bundan yuqoriroq nafaqat regional balki global konferensiyalarni ham o'tkazishga o'z hissamizni qo'shishga harakat qilishimizni bildirib o'tmoqchiman. E'tiborli uchun rahmat.
We can leave it at that. Okay, hello again everybody and good morning. It is such an honor to have had all of these speakers here with us. I'm now going to really give further thanks to all of the people who've been involved. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Tesol International has been my professional home since I was a graduate student, since I was doing my master's degree in applied linguistics and Tesol. And with this in mind, I'd just like to share with you for a few minutes some of the benefits of Tesol membership. So if perhaps I could have the first slide, is here. I have it's on me. Oh, that's great. Okay. So we see that the question is, why engage with Tesol? Tesol is an international association with a fluctuating membership, but somewhere between 13,000 members globally, both in North America but around the world. If I could have the, I'm not sure if this is on. Can I get the next slide? Here we go. Yes, okay. So there are a few aspects. I'm going to look with you because I don't seem to have a monitor here. There are aspects about Tesol that I'd like to share with you. And the first one is to be in the know. And in that sense, that Tesol really has an extensive amount of literature. And we have our own publications, Tesol publications. There are also 2 global journals for subscription, Tesol Quarterly, which is a highly ranked international journal with peer review, and a secondary practitioner journal, Tesol Journal, which is also practitioner-based and peer-reviewed. We have online, something's happening. I don't seem to be in control. We have online newsletters, Tesol Connections, as well as a blog that goes on a regular basis. Yes. We also have a chance for you to advance your career. And in terms of that, we have resources and career placement aspects to apply for jobs, not just within your region, but globally, where people can really find connections across the board. We look to help you grow your network. I say that Tesol is my professional home, and when I come to an event like this, I look around the room and I see people that I have known for 10, 20, 30 years. And most of us will say, in a pre-COVID world, coming to the convention for Tesol International was like coming home. And there was hugging and tears, and we would find people because we really have a shared connection in our shared community of practice. In terms of community of practice, we have interest sections, 13 or 14 different areas where people are doing research and practice, and they also have newsletters where they connect with each other. And we also have something we call councils, where people are working on professional councils for developing the conferences, for developing membership, and so on. The next area is just attend and learn. And it doesn't seem that I have to tell you much about that because you're here. And we do our best to host conferences like this, regional conferences, but also our large international convention, which draws in our last in Pittsburgh. And at this point, I have to thank Lisa Dyson, who is the director for events at Tesol. It was amazing. For our first in-person post-COVID event, we had 2,000 plus attendees in Pittsburgh and over 8,000 online hybrid registrants. And so it was such a thrilling event to be able to come together to both attend and learn, grow our network, be in the know, and advance our careers. I'm going to leave the slides there for you to see. And at this point, I really want to thank a number of people. And I may repeat some of the names that the ambassador gave, but I think that it's all the due course that we must thank everybody involved. So it really has been a pleasure for Tesol to partner with American Councils of International Education, the U.S. Embassy Tashkent, and the Ministry of Public Education of Uzbekistan to support teacher professional development and English language enhancement as part of the English-speaking nation's secondary teacher training program, and to collaborate with George Mason University, which you know is GMU, to deliver the Teacher Development Training of Teachers program for secondary public school teachers. Tesol is pleased to welcome you to our first Tesol Regional Conference we've held in Central Asia. And on behalf of Tesol International, I would like to thank the ambassador. I would like to thank Mr. I'm going to stumble again. Mr. Sharif Yav. Close? My apologies. From the Ministry of Public Education of Uzbekistan. I'd like to thank Rustam Kazakov of Inha University Tashkent and their technical team today who are hosting us in this beautiful facility. I hope you're starting to feel the air conditioning that's coming on. You can fan yourselves a little bit. From American Councils, Country Director Will O'Rourke, Dinara Sainazarova, and the ESF program team, and the ESN coaches, Alicia Bradley, Brianna Rogers, Kenneth Myers, Maureen Rooney, Joey Brexa, and Kathy Cull, as well as Kendra Stanley, Mia Gabel, and Wendy Colson, who couldn't be with us today. Then, of course, Tesol International Association ESN Program Director Heidi Faust. And the Tesol International Association coaches, Laura Hancock, Armen Kasabian, TESOL would like to acknowledge all the efforts and contributions of the coaches, the ESN core trainers, your CTs, and the regional peer mentors in successfully cascading professional development modules on the TESOL 6 principles of exemplary teaching, of English learners and GMU's Teaching English Through English course, which are expected to reach over 15,000 teachers across Uzbekistan in total. It is sincerely my great pleasure to announce that as of today, almost 400 teachers have now completed their core certificate program. Congratulations. I'm truly looking forward to hearing more about your training and how it's impacted your teaching, and we're happy to have so many of you with us this week. We'd also like to welcome our regional English language officers, John Silver and Jen Bureau. George Mason University ESN Program Director, Joan Kanchin. And GMU team members Wumi Kim, and our colleagues from English Without Borders, Tajikistan, and all of the attendees from Uzbekistan throughout Central Asia and the great TESOL community who've come to share their expertise and participate in this exciting international professional opportunity. I hope this is just the beginning of your journey with TESOL International Association and engaging with the community of English language educators that is TESOL. I do encourage you to visit our website, tesol.org, to engage with your new professional home. On the website, you'll see, perhaps, no? There we go. Welcome. On the website, you'll see that we have an upcoming event. In particular, on October 18th and 19th, we're hosting a virtual conference. And this virtual conference is called Elevate, right, to lift you up, with sessions focused, by all means, you're welcome to clap, with sessions focused on student-centered learning, trauma-informed practices, and family engagement, just to name a few. I hope to see you at Elevate or online in our My TESOL network area that is free to all members. So as you can see, there's a rich and diverse program for this event. You all have your programs in your bags and you can skim through. But for now, I really wish you a wonderful conference, a wonderful week. Please come and introduce yourself if we see each other in the hall. I'd love to hear your story. You can hear mine. I don't think this is exciting. But welcome. And now I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome our first keynote speaker. It is truly my honor to introduce Dr. Christine Koh, who is an associate professor at Dubai Men's College. Christine is a previous president, so I'm walking in some very experienced shoes. She was president of TESOL International Association from 2011 to 2012. I want to tell you a little bit about Christine, because she has had a very illustrious career. First, in 2013, not first, she had a career before 2013, but in 2013, she was awarded the British Council International Assessment Award. In 2018, she was honored by TESOL International Association for her contribution to the field with the James E. Aladdis Award. In 2019, she was then noted by TESOL as TESOL's 50 at 50 in honor of TESOL's 50th anniversary for her accomplishments and her contributions to the field. And then most recently, when the State Department honored 30 of their top specialists, Christine was noted and awarded one of the top 30 at 30 for her contributions as a specialist. And I know some of you in the field have really been able to benefit from her contribution as her work as a specialist. On a private front, Christine travels, and she is very proud to tell me that she visited 147 countries in the world to date. Wow. Which seems like a greater accomplishment for her. She's truly an international citizen. And her latest goal is she's currently published 57 books in our field. And she tells me that her goal is to print 60 by your 60th birthday. So, with no further ado, Christine.
morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Happy to be here. My second time in Uzbekistan, but I see many, many familiar faces from other specialist programs I've done throughout the world in every conference as well. Thank you so much for that nice introduction, Joyce. I have to say before I begin, oh, there are my slides, good. I have to say before I begin that today is the only day I'll be able to attend this conference because I've only been given 1 day of leave. We're still engaged in the summer session at Dubai Men's College where I work, but I'm happy to have a day with you today. So please approach me, let's take some pictures after the plenary or at lunch or whenever, okay? But now we've got some work to do. Thank you again, Joyce, for that lovely introduction, setting me up, I hope, perfectly for my topic, the quest for academic excellence in ELT. Now, I have to admit as well that I'm a bit nervous because this is only the second face-to-face conference I've attended since 2019, was it? No, 2020. Okay, so if I'm a bit rusty, please forgive me, okay? I don't see my slides here. They were supposed to be here, but I guess it's great to just have them in one place, isn't it? All right, so what are we going to be talking about today? Well, the quest for academic excellence. So, why this topic? Well, two things really. I'm going to actually tell you about why I decided to do this topic, and we're going to talk a little bit about situate the topic in the research on the life cycle of a career teacher. Then we'll look at what I consider to be the elements of an academic career, and namely teaching, scholarly output, and service to the community, to the profession, to the world at large. And then we're going to look at some research on measuring our impact, as well as defining career moments. And we'll finish up with some strategies that you might find useful if you too have a desire to achieve academic excellence. So I know I've got a little bit over 45 minutes, so we better get started. Okay, good, that worked. Why this topic? Well, for me, I've always, even since high school, I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, but even since high school, I have always wanted to achieve excellence. Now, I had no idea what I wanted to achieve excellence in, nor did I have a plan. That was my first real mistake, not having a plan to achieve excellence. I kind of was fortunate to have people in my life who guided me, even though I didn't really know what I was wanting to do, all right? I fell into teaching. I didn't plan to be a teacher, but circumstances, which I'll describe a little bit later, brought me into the teaching field. My quest was gradual once I got into teaching. So, all those things that, Joyce mentioned didn't all happen in 1 year. I published my first book in 1996, and it's taken me till now to increase those numbers. So I started gradually, like many people probably in the field, but I kept going. Now, this topic came about because of two reasons. Last November, another Tesol president, Dr. Yilin Sun, maybe many of you know her from specialist programs, she sent me an invitation to write a book in her series, which is the Foreign Language Teacher Education and Development Selected Works of Resources for, and I quote, renowned Tesol experts. And she sent a couple of examples of people who were also part of this book. And I have to say, I was flattered, first of all, to be considered by her a renowned Tesol expert, and also to be in the company of lots of other really famous people like Diane Larson Freeman. So I thought, okay. And she asked me to do this book on my field of expertise, which is language assessment, okay? Another reason why I decided to look into this topic was I am approaching a milestone birthday. In less than a month, I'll turn 60. So I'm thinking maybe I have something to say about achieving academic excellence. So that's why this talk, okay? Now, a disclaimer. Just because I'm speaking on this topic does not mean I consider myself excellent in all, walks of life or parts of our profession. Sure, I've achieved excellence in certain things, just like many of you probably have as well. But I'm not finished. I'm still trying to, achieve excellence more and more in the profession. I'm not done yet. So, if we define excellence, oh boy, I can't really see that. We start with a definition of excellence that is probably one of those students' definitions. The definition of being excellence is being the state of excellence, basically. You know those definitions our students give us that aren't really definitions, but they think they are. So being excellence, what does it mean? It means you do great work in something or in some way, and some associated adjectives are, high value, merit, distinction. So lots of definitions of excellence, but for me, I truly believe excellence is however you define it, okay? So you probably think of excellence and what would it mean for you to be excellent, but I think it's really important that we look at, as in all fields within my profession, I am very research-based, so I look at what the research tells us first, but then I don't discount what I feel as well, because I believe that my expertise, my reflections also contribute to the knowledge base. So however you define excellence is however you define it. All right, so I was very influenced in the terminology of excellence by a work by Orlik, The Wheel of Excellence, based on, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. This was created in 2005, and it looks at 7 critical elements of excellence, okay? And I've listed them there. The first 2, commitment and belief, are at the center of the Wheel of Excellence, and there are 5 other aspects: full focus, positive images, mental readiness, distraction control, and constructive evaluation, that are all related to these comments. Now I see lots of cameras going up. You don't need to take pictures of the slides. All you need to do is take a picture of the last slide, which has my email on it, and I'll send you the whole presentation. Now, if you use taking pictures of slides as a way to, God forbid, keep awake, then by all means continue to take pictures. But I'm certainly happy to provide you with the whole PowerPoint, should you desire. Okay? So now let's have a look at Orlik's Wheel of Excellence, which are these 7 aspects that work together to form a working framework of excellence. And there it is. Okay? So I look at excellence with regard to these 7 elements, as well as my reflections on what excellence means to me, as well as definitions from the literature. All right? Okay, let's turn now to thinking about why we became teachers, Tesol teachers, or English language teachers. On this slide, you'll see a number of different reasons why people become Tesol teachers. Okay? So, with a show of hands, and remember, you can raise your hand more than one time. With a show of hands, how many of you became teachers because you wanted to make a difference for altruistic reasons? Okay, not bad. All right, how many of you wanted to see the world? Okay. How about those long summer vacations? I'm going to raise my hand halfway because for me, my summers have been getting shorter and shorter these days. How about the impact of a favorite teacher? Wow. I think many of you need to keep your hands up because you're going to respond to all of them. How about the desire to be on stage? That's not me, but I've come to like being on stage. But it wasn't one of my initial reasons for becoming a teacher. But we all know those teachers. We all work with some of those teachers where they're just, failed actors or actresses. Okay? How about life of the mind? Do you know what that means, life of the mind? Kind of the desire to, you want to stay young, so you involve yourself with young people.
Yes.
Okay. Right, good. working? How about this? Better? Okay, cool. That way I can walk a little bit. Sorry to ignore this part of the room, but I'm going to go make eye contact with this half of the room. Okay, what's next on the list? Family tradition. We heard the ambassador talk about family tradition. How many of you became teachers because of family tradition? You got teachers in the family. Wow, okay, good. Okay, now this next one, I put on the slide because I wanted to see whether you are really paying attention or not, okay? So, okay, I hope for your sake that teachers are paid really well. But as many times as I've talked about this research, I find that that's not really true. But I hope one day, if I talk about it long enough, that one day teachers will be paid what they're worth one of these days. Okay. Now, when I first did a talk on teacher effectiveness when I was president of Tesol, way back in 2012, I was at an event similar to this one. It was the Tesol Symposium in Beijing. And a really famous Tesoler, maybe you've heard of David Noonan? Yeah. Have you heard of him? He raised his hand and he said, "Christine, you forgot one of the reasons." And I said, "David, what do you mean?" And he goes, "The accidental teacher." What did he mean by that? Well, the accidental teacher is someone who had no desire to go into teaching, but they found themselves in kind of a teaching situation, and they really liked it, and they decided to go get trained as a teacher. So here is the kicker. Okay, I see some hands going up already. How many accidental teachers do we have?
It's possible to have.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I think thinking about how we got into the profession is very important, okay? So, oh, good. Now, another aspect of looking at this topic on academic excellence is looking at excellence by being where you are as a person in your life and where you are in your career, okay? So let's take a look at the research on career phase development, shall we? All right, so there's been a lot of research done on this topic, and a lot of it dates back to the 1980s. So it's had a long, illustrious research tradition. And the four major contributors to this research are some names that maybe you all recognize. From Switzerland, Michael Huberman. From the US, Ralph Fessler. And from the UK, Patricia Sykes and Christopher Day. They were the early frontrunners of the research within our field on career phase. And most of their work consisted of major empirical models of teacher career trajectories, as well as patterns in which a teacher's work life developed, okay? So we're going to take a look at just a few of those, and then I'm going to present you with the one that resonates with me most strongly, okay? And then we're going to look at where some of you feel you are based on that framework. Well, as far back as 1957, a scholar named Super identified 4 stages of career phase, okay? And they were exploration, establishment, maintenance, and disengagement. And the major premise of this research was that it posited that teachers do not always go in this order. Sometimes they skip a phase and they backslide as well. So that was major findings from this early research. Huberman, who is probably the most prolific researcher in this field, basically put forward a 5-stage model. And those stages were career entry, stabilization in the profession, and then feeling that you have enough experience that you start experimenting in your classes with your students. Then you become more conservative. This could be based on your age as a teacher or your student population. And finally, disengagement. So if you look at this model and the super model, if you look at the last phase, would you call those phases positive or negative? Negative, right? Because super is disengagement and also Huberman, disengagement. So one of the reasons that I elected to go with another model, which I'll explain in a minute, is that most of the models had a negative element. Now this doesn't mean that you have to go through this phase, but it's represented nonetheless. So if we look at Fessler's model, this is 8 stages, okay? Pre-service and then induction into the profession, competency building as a teacher, enthusiasm and growing as a teacher, career frustration, becoming stable and stagnant, career wind down, career excellence. So how many negative phases in this model do you think? How many negative phases? Career frustration and then being stagnant in the profession, okay? Even the last phase, I feel, career exit, is kind of negative. Because when I think of where I want to be, when I can finally afford to retire, I hope I don't have to exit the profession completely. I hope I'm going to be coming around and doing projects like the one in Uzbekistan, being a career coach, using my experience that way. That's what I'm hoping for myself, touch wood. All right, let's look at a lighter way to look at things. And I don't know if any of you know the website Teach Thought. Do any of you know these? These are some, this is one of my favorite teacher websites, and I get lots of articles forwarded and things. And this comes from Teach Thought with Terry Hike. He looks at career phase as pride of being a teacher and being in the profession, then being thrown into your first classroom and you're in survival mode. Many of you you all look relatively young here, so maybe some of you are in survival mode now. But I certainly remember survival mode for me. Experimentation, but then what do we have? Disillusionment, rebellion, the negative phases. And then I like how he comes out with a positive one at the end, ongoing mastery. Okay? So that's another more lighthearted view of career phase development. Now, this is the one that I really like. And this comes to us from the work of Steffi and colleagues fairly, long time ago in 2000. So the 6 levels here include being a novice, then being an apprentice, being a professional teacher, moving into the expert phase, then into the distinguished phase, and then the emeritus phase. So this is the one I like, and can you guess why? There is no negative, okay? Now maybe that's me not wanting to admit that there's kind of an unbalanced view, but this is the one I like. So I'm going to talk about each of these phases more specifically, and then I'm going to ask you all to discuss what phase you feel that you're currently in, okay? So pay attention and try to spot the phase that you're in. Let's look at the first 3. Well, a novice begins at the pre-service stage. That's while you're training to be a teacher. It's often in teacher education programs, and it's where the teachers who are at this phase, they are hesitant, they are unsure, but as they go through their teacher education phases, they begin to develop some confidence. Then, you become the apprentice. And this is where you get your own class. It usually occurs your first couple of teaching assignments, continues for about 2 to 3 years. And it's where you are energetic, you're enthusiastic, you're idealistic, eager, passionate about what you're doing, and you care about student success. Okay? As we move on to the professional stage of career phase development, our self-confidence begins to grow. And this is because of the feedback we get. Most oftentimes it comes from the student feedback we get in our classes. This is where we start seeking opportunities to grow, professional development. This is where we observe others, we collaborate, and we seek help. The other 2 phases, we're just out of our education program. We don't realize that unless we've been taught by our faculty in our master's or in our education programs, that you're never really going to be finished with learning about teaching. We don't think we need other development, but at this stage, the professional stage, we realize that this profession is going to be focused on lifelong learning, and we're going to be learning until, we're at the much higher stages. So let's look at the expert teacher. The expert teacher is where we anticipate our students' responses and growth, and we modify what we do in order to meet those goals, and we're focused on promoting student growth and development, not just within our own subject matter area, but as people as a whole. We competently support, we facilitate, we nurture growth, not only in our students, but in ourselves, and oftentimes in other teachers, all right? As we move into the distinguished teacher phase, we realize that teacher impact, or the impact we have as an educator, should be moving beyond the walls of the classroom. We continue to actively engage in professional development outside, inside the classroom, etc. And emeritus usually takes place after we have retired officially from the profession. But we all know those people who technically retire, but they seem to be busier in retirement than they are when they're in an actual career. So this emeritus phase is where one that I hope to achieve one of these days is where I'll be continually involved in the profession, but I'll be able to not have to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. I'll be able to pick and choose the projects that I get involved in. They take on new roles, they identify different ways to serve, and they celebrate, basically, along with their colleagues, a lifetime of achievement. So I hope one day to reach the emeritus stage. So now I'd like you to think about where you are in the life cycle. So let's go back. Do we have any novices? Show of hands, please, if you consider yourself a novice. Okay. How about an apprentice in your first 2 to 3 years of teaching? Wow, okay. Professional teachers? Okay, lots of professional teachers. How about expert teachers? And don't be shy to call yourself an expert. See, I'm not shy. Okay, good. And how about distinguished teachers? I'm going to be shy and say, this is where I consider myself to be. I've got the age behind me, I've got the experience, etc. So I'm going to be shy, but I'm still going to admit I think I'm a distinguished teacher. Do we have any emeritus teachers? Yes, thank you. Thank you, great. Let's give a big round of applause and celebrate our emeritus teachers. Okay, fantastic. All right, so what are some of the major findings on career phase development? Well, Huberman's major findings indicate that there is considerable variation in the timings of these stages. Like, although there was one research finding that said the second stage, the apprentice, was like the first 2 to 3 years. But if you look at research on what constitutes an experienced teacher, you would think that there'd be a lot of research on this, but there is not. In fact, for another project, when I tried to get a read on an experienced teacher, the only citation I found was that experienced teachers have anywhere between 3 and 8 years of classroom experience. Now, I looked at this with kind of a bit of skepticism because I remember year 3 in the classroom, and I was by no means experienced. Year 8, okay, I was experienced, but I don't really have a lot of trust in that citation, but there were no other ones that I could use to replace it. Okay, now another research finding from Huberman is that teachers can miss stages. So it's possible to go in as an apprentice without being a novice. For many of you, I don't know if there are many Americans here who have gone through the teaching assistantship phase to getting their graduate degrees. I feel that I was doing those first 2 stages because I was teaching beginning level language, but also doing my doctorate or my master's at the same time. So I feel those first two stages for me happen simultaneously, okay? What else? Teachers can revert to earlier stages, and this happened to me very recently. Remember March 2020, when we were all sent home to teach online? Like within 3 days? Okay, I'm sorry if I'm bringing up some stressful stuff, but I still remember I was in, and we teach online. I work for Higher Colleges of Technology. We teach online, and I was in my office, okay, at home. And I have, if any of you know me, I have this wall. I call it the wall of achievements. It's a motivational thing for me. I have all my diplomas, all my awards, and many of my book covers filling this wall. But I remember sitting in my chair, overlooking this wall of achievement, and literally, I could not figure out how to write on a slide, how to circle something on a slide, okay? And I'm ashamed to admit that I cried, okay? And then till one of my students sent me a private chat and said, Miss, with a screenshot, Miss, you just click on this and then circle. So a student saved me from further humiliation and embarrassment. But I still remember, and I haven't felt like a virtual amateur in a long time, but those first few days, okay, I'll say weeks, I felt like a rank amateur in the teaching field, because even though I teach using technology a lot, it was a whole different ballgame to teach students. I don't know how your students are, but my students, none of them turned their cameras on. And I suspect that many of them were not even in class. I suspect, I hope this is not being recorded, but I suspect a lot of them logged on, turned their cameras off, and were playing video games or doing something else because they just want to be counted as being present. Was it the same with you? Although I envision Uzbek students to be more serious than maybe mine were. But that's an example of reverting back to a stage. And another of Huberman's findings were that teachers can actually remain in the same stage throughout their career. We all know those teachers who never seem to move forward. You know the old adage, having 1 year of teaching experience versus 20 years of teaching experience? 20 years of experience sounds great, doesn't it? But not if it's the same 1 year times 20. So teachers can stay in the same phase. Now, according to the literature on academic excellence and your quest, a first step in the quest for academic excellence is determining where you are in your current quest. So we've all determined that I think the majority are we professional teachers. I think that's what I remember from our show of hands. So what stage is next for you professional teachers? Let's see how you were. Oh, expert, fantastic, good. There are also some mediating factors in this research as well, and most of these come from the work of Day and his colleagues. Teacher, your capacity to sustain your commitment, and we all know to achieve excellence, you've got to be committed. I don't know of any people that I define as having already achieved excellence having a lack of commitment. So in order to do this, you have to look at what career phase you're in, and you have to look at the scenarios, the context of scenarios of other aspects of your life. What are those other aspects? Well, the professional is one of those aspects, so where you are at in your career. Another phase is the situated phase. That relates to your lives at school or at your workplace, as well as the personal. So it relates to your life outside the classroom. So according to Day and his colleagues, all three of these contexts in which you function are related and come into play when you consider your journey to academic excellence. All right, now let's look at some of the elements of academic achievement. And I've taken these from my own institution's performance evaluation. At my institution and in many others around the world, teachers are rated based on 3 things, okay? Anybody remember what they were from my opening slide? There were 3 areas I mentioned. Oh, okay. No one? Did I mention what? No problem, no problem. That was a few slides ago, okay? Now, so let's have a look. The first one is what we do in the classroom, teaching, right? And there are lots of things. Now, I tried to limit each of these 3 elements to 1 slide each. So obviously, if we were to have a workshop together, you might think of other things that should be on these slides. So I hope if you think of something that's lacking from these slides, you'll send me an email after the conference. So what do we have to do with regard to our academic work of teaching? Well, we've got to engage in a variety of classroom activities as and when we teach. We need to be also completing all of our other jobs, the aspects of our job that aren't necessarily teaching, that relate to teaching, like attendance, okay? That's a really big thing at my institution. And we receive more training on attendance-related stuff than we do on teaching-related stuff. It's kind of sad, but true. So we need to participate in course materials development, as well as engage in assessment, and all the required administrivia that surrounds our job, the other stuff that we do that takes up a lot of time. We also, especially at my institution, we need to be able to use technology effectively. We have to be able to engage in professional development. At my institution, we have to do a minimum of 51 hours of PD for the year, of which we have to present certificates for. I don't know if it's the same here, but professional development is very, very important for us. We have to participate in shared teaching practices, like peer observation, or focus groups talking about teaching various elements. We need to participate in assessment development, assessment moderation, item writing, etc., as well as serve as both a formal and an informal advisor to our students as they go through their undergraduate degrees. Now, I wish I had time to have some ideas from you on other things that might fall into this category, but it's time to move on to the second category, and that's scholarly output. Now, this might only be important for you if you're teaching at a university and you're in a ranked position. But for us, teachers who aren't in ranked positions also have to have output that is academic or scholarly in its form. So let's see, doing research, okay, to better inform our teaching. And that could be any type of research, from action research all the way to highly empirical mixed methods research. We need to be able to organize, present at, or participate in events like this, in conferences. All right, that's important. We need to publish academic work in a variety of different venues. It could be conference proceedings, it could be newsletters, but now the big thing in the UAE where I'm based is Scopus Index Q1, first author. So literally nothing else you do, even writing a book does not count as much as a Scopus Index Q1 journal article, where you are the first author. So you need to also apply for and receive research grants that bring in money to the institution so that you can fund your own research. And you need to develop creative projects, inventions, apply for patents, or copyrights on different things. So my institution, they don't mess around with scholarly output. There's a number of different things that you need to do, and these are pretty much it. Anybody remember the third one? I've given you a hint. Teaching, scholarly output. Service, thank you, yes. Service, very important as well, especially if you're on a promotion track. We need to serve on committees, both at the department and the institutional level, as well as those that are external to your thing, like British Council, or even the American Council's Committee. So getting involved in things that are external or outside. We also need to deliver professional development to not only our colleagues, but to other people. How many here are presenters at this event? Raise your hand. Excellent, good, excellent, well done. We need to engage in student activities, okay? Clubs, at the department, program, or campus levels. Anybody here engage in student clubs or student activities? Good. And we need to serve as mentors, particularly when we're in later stages of our career, when we've got something we can give back. We need to engage in these kinds of things with our colleagues, with our students, and within the wider academic community. And finally, we need to promote our institution at the national or local and global level, all right? Just like, anybody work here at this institution, at Inha University, anybody? So just by hosting this event here, we are in effect promoting the institution at a global level. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is how we actually measure our impact. Now, pretty much all of the research that I found on measuring input is on research impact. So that's what I'm going to be talking about now. How many of you have done research in your careers? Well, if you're early career professionals, maybe this will help you in the future, all right? Because research is an important part of the scholarly output part of my framework. So I really like this quote, and I wish I could read it, but my eyesight is not good enough to see that slanted writing. Okay, I'm going to give it a try. There is a growing consensus in academia that true impact is measured not only by how well our research is received and to what extent it is used by fellow academics, okay? But also by what kind of changes it makes beyond academia. And I'm proud to say that that quote comes from a chapter in a book that I edited on professionalism in English language teaching by Willie Renandia and Trin Min. And they wrote about measuring impact, okay? So I think it's important that as I go through ways that you can measure your research impact, that you also have to think about, it doesn't matter how many times people cite your research. What really matters, at least in their view and in mine, is that what impact does it make on the profession as a whole? Now, the key measurements for research impact are the quality of the journal that you publish in, also the quality of the publication, and or the number of times that the article was cited. And another thing that I've recently come across, the altmetrics, and I'll talk about each of those in more depth. And personal measures like the H-index. Anybody heard of the H-index? So good, okay. All right, so author IDs, probably many of you belong to an author ID profile, but author IDs help you promote you and your research, and they also ensure that you aren't confused with others that have the same name, but work in different fields of expertise. So how many have an ORCID ID? For so many years I called that ORCID. I don't know why I called it ORCID, but it's ORCID. Okay, good. ORCID, if you don't already have it, look it up, because if you go into academia, you're going to have something like this. Now many journals are asking for your ORCID ID number, so people can look at your work in that way. Let's see, Google Scholar. Any of you have a Google Scholar profile? Okay, great. And the Google Scholar profile is where you'll be able to find your current H-index, okay? There are a number of author profile services. Vitae, which is associated with the Chronicle of Higher Education, a very renowned, I don't know if I could call it a journal, but publication surrounding academia in the US. Academia.edu, anybody have a profile there? And ResearchGate. So all of these are different things that I encourage you to explore to help you start tracking. Now, when I first discovered this kind of thing, it was a few years ago, and I look at my Google Scholar profile and I see that half my publications aren't really on this profile because nobody, and by nobody I mean me, I did not add them. So the sooner you start in your career getting yourself set up on many of these author ID platforms, the better you'll be later on. A journal impact factor is the most well-known measurement of the credibility of a journal, of journal quality, and it basically measures citations of published work over the past 2 years. So in most fields, a journal impact factor of 10 or greater is excellent, and in many, anything over 3 is considered good. So there you have it, what I consider to be the most popular journals within our field, as well as their journal impact factor as of February of this year. The H index. Oh, are you applauding for my H index? Oh, so thank you so much. Okay. Now, an H index, I'm going to show you how to find it, okay? An H minus 21, in November it was 20. So by some miracle, I've moved up a point. I don't know how, but I have, according to Google Scholar, okay? So if you have an H index of 20, that means you have 20 papers with at least 20 citations each. So the beauty of the H index, although this is very controversial, the beauty of the H index, it measures 2 things. It measures quality and it measures impact, okay? So not just, so if you are a one-hit wonder is a person who publishes a paper and 3 zillion people cite it, but doesn't publish anything else, they do not have a high H index, okay? So it looks at consistency of publication over time and impact in the form of people citing it. And it looks at non-self citations. So citing your own work a gazillion times is not going to help you improve your H index, okay? So both productivity and impact are required to have a high H index, and so neither a few highly cited papers nor a long list of papers with only 1 or 2 citations will get you a high H index. So I'm so happy that you were, I'm going to say, impressed with my H index, but I have more on that here on this next slide. So what is a good H index? Do you see? Oh, maybe I should have figured out how to use this pointer. Let's see. There's my H index. So if you go to your Google Scholar profile, you'll see H index, there's mine, okay? So, now there's a lot of research on this, okay? Over 20 years of research, mostly done by Hirsch, who's the inventor of the H index. I wonder if he used H because his name is Hirsch. I should look that up at some point, but probably he does. Now, 84% of Nobel Prize winners in physics had an H index of at least 30, okay? Now, this is pretty good, isn't it? So 21, one could technically say that that's kind of almost at 30, right? Well, the plot will think, wonder where that other slide was. Okay, now the H index, I must have taken that slide out in the interest of time. Okay, so I'm only giving you one side of my H index. Further research says that if you have 20, you're considered good. Okay, well, so I think about 30 years of killing myself, doing all these books and all these publications, and I'm only good. But then I found the Nobel Prize winner, 84% at 30, and I felt a little bit better about my H index, okay? I don't know why I took that off this PowerPoint. Okay, so I encourage you to look up your H index when you've got a free moment. Now, another thing, as doing the research for this presentation that I learned about are altmetrics. Anybody heard of these altmetrics? Okay, well, I know just a little bit, and what I know I'm going to share with you. An altmetric is an alternative metric upon which to measure impact. Now, I have no idea how to measure it. I just know what it is. But what is it exactly? Well, it's looking at Anytime somebody mentions you or your work on any of the social media platforms, so it's impact through social media or through alternative metrics. Anytime somebody exports the reference lists or citations from any of your work, anytime somebody downloads an article or a book that you've written, and or downloads of other things. Anytime somebody mentions you in a blog or on other online formats. And page views as well. Now, I have yet to do the research on how we can measure our impact through altmetrics. But it would be a really good project for some of you to do if you're looking for master's, thesis, or doctoral dissertation topics. Okay, so journal and article level metrics. We've already talked about the journal impact factor, very important. But we also need to look at the ranking of the journal within the profession, whether or not it is indexed on Scopus. Scopus is big at my institution, or SSI as well. Probably there are others around the world that are important as well. Journals in the top 25% are considered the most impactful, and those in the bottom 25% are the least impactful. So in our profession, I've told you, I've included on this slide what I feel and what other people feel to be the most impactful journals in our field. Sorry if I've forgotten one that you really think is good. All right. Author level metrics, we've talked about. H-index, what else? The number of citation metrics, the number of people who download your work, again, will be an author metric as well as an alt metric. Now, okay, we've talked about the research on career phase development. We've talked about how we can measure our impact. We've talked about the 3 areas that teachers are often evaluated in for their on their career in terms of academic excellence. Who can remember what those 3 are? Teaching, good. 2, scholarly output. Perfect, good. Now, another recommended step in your quest for being excellence is to take a retrospective look back at career-defining moments, okay? So, I'm going to share a few of those career-defining moments with you as soon as I check on how much time I have. Uh-oh. Do I have any time left? Okay, I'm going to do it quickly. And I'm going to encourage you to think about your career-defining moments. So, and I'm happy to say that it was hard to just fit them all on one slide because I feel I've had a great career. So what are some of the things? Well, the decision to go to university was one. In fact, all my friends on social media from high school can't believe I'm a teacher, okay? Because I was kind of, I don't want to say trouble, but I was kind of trouble in high school because I was an athlete. And way back then, if you were a good athlete, you didn't really have to be good academically, and you were all popular because you were good in sports. So I was kind of trouble, but then I wasn't even sure I'd go to university. My sister has a serious illness, and in 10th grade, my parents say, "We love you, we support you in anything you do, but your sister is very sick. We have to spend your college funds on her medical." And at first I was really angry, as teenagers are. But then it was kind of like the best thing that ever happened to me because I had to find a way to educate myself. Luckily, in the U.S., you can take out loans, and you can take out enough money to send yourself to university, and they're low interest, and you've got some time to pay it back. Well, I took out loans for bachelor's, master's, doctorate. It took me 25 years to pay them off. Paid them off in 2013. But somebody like me, who had no parental support, could go to university, and good universities as well. So the decision to go to university was made, and I was able to get myself into university. I was within minutes of signing up for the Air Force with an Air Force recruiter, and the Air Force recruiter who lived in my neighborhood said, "Go home, have lunch, and then come back this afternoon and we'll sign the papers. So I did. And what was there in the mail for me? A scholarship for track and field. That was my sport. So literally within minutes, I changed my whole career trajectory. I said, sorry, I'm not joining the Air Force, and I went to Fairmont State University instead. And I'd like to say the rest was history, but I have more career-defining moments. Discovering my academic specialty when I was in my early on in my doctoral program, joining the leadership of Tesol Arabia, which led me to my involvement with Tesol International, becoming president and conference chair, etc. The birth and death of a conference that I had, that I organized for 16 years, called CTELT, Current Trends in English Language Testing. Just no money, so it died a long, slow death. Chartering a student club, which was student teachers, which combined my love of travel, as well as my love of doing student activities. It's called the Global Local Club, and Tesol Arabia Toastmasters. And my involvement with worldwide associations like the U.S. Department of State, the English Language Specialist Program, the British Council, the English Language Testing Society, Tesol Golf, the International Baccalaureate, and of course my beloved Tesol International. These were all career-defining moments for me and kind of shaped the trajectory of my career. I encourage you, the next time you're having coffee downstairs, you think about and talk about what you consider to be your career-defining moments. Okay, I have just a few more slides. This is the important stuff. Maybe I was going on and on too much early on. What are some strategies that you can use if you want to be more effective? Well, expect to work hard. I don't know anybody, unless they're really rich, that they're successful without having to put in the work. If you want to be successful, work really hard, and I would go on to further state, work more than everybody else. One of my favorite quotations is from Henry Ford, the best never rest. So keep working hard. Oh, and I'm not saying work yourself into an early grave. I'm saying give yourself some rest, but you know, you can't really work a year and then rest a year. That's not how it happens, at least in my view. Never stop learning. 30 years I've been in the field, maybe more now, and I'm still learning every day at events like this, and from my students. Also have a plan. You're to the point where you can start personal and professional strategic planning, which is the only reason I survived being president of Tesol International in Dubai. That was basically all around the world. So have a plan. Work on your organizational productivity and time management skills. This will help you in all aspects of life. And pursue and engage in personal and professional development. Don't wait for opportunities to come to you. You need to go out and search for the opportunities that you need. And luckily now, there's lots of good free PD, but don't not come to events like this that are excellent opportunities for PD just because you want everything for free. So you need to invest in yourself. More strategies. Continue setting goals for yourself, an important part of personal and professional strategic planning. Develop habits that are correlated with academic excellence, like reading, like associating with people who build you up. Research shows that you develop the characteristics of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I would say, don't hang with losers, hang with people who you want to be like, okay? So it's really important that you surround yourself with like-minded individuals. Know what your time wasters are. For me, it's Netflix, okay? I watch all together too, especially since the pandemic. I'm big on my series. Sure, watch Netflix, do whatever you do to have fun, but don't do too much of it. Let's see. Increase your EI and self-awareness skills, and take care of yourself. I read a shocking statistic that people in general take better care of their cars than they do themselves. So make sure you get enough sleep, you eat right, you exercise, you engage in self-care and well-being, and you're mindful and you engage in reflection. I'm lucky because one of my biggest hobbies is coming to conferences. So I would say this is self-care and well-being for me. How about you? Do you like events like this? Perfect, good. All right, allow time to recharge more fully. One of the disadvantages of my workplace is that we don't have sabbaticals. I really would love to have a sabbatical. A sabbatical is where, do you have them here? No? Okay, I wish you could have sabbaticals. I had a friend live with me for 6 months last year, and she was on sabbatical, being paid by her university to live in Dubai and do a project, and to really have fun, to go someplace else and, recharge, etc. Be adaptable and open to change, and also believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody's really going to believe in you. And I think it's also important to be and stay humble on your way up. It's important that you always should remember where you came from. And I think the pandemic for me was one lesson that taught me, okay, you might have 30 years of experience, but you can't circle a word on a screen, on a computer. So I always remember that, you can learn from anyone and from anything, and remember that. And never give up. I really love this quote. Defeat is never defeat unless you accept it as such. And the one thing I'm never giving up on is the seminar at sea. The seminar at sea is my dream of a PD event, because I love cruises. I love getting on boats, and I one day hope to have either a student or a teacher PD event. Yeah, any takers? We get on a cruise ship, we sail around a nice place, and on the days that we're at sea, we have some sessions like this. That's my dream. It's been going on for like 10 years, and one day I hope I'll achieve it. I think this is the end. Yeah, final thoughts. Okay. So I'm going to leave you. I'll let you read that, okay? And I wish you the best of luck on your own personal and professional growth in academia. And I hope to see some of you. Apologies if someone else is right after me. I've taken up 2 minutes of your time. Sorry? Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. My phone number's there, but please, I hardly ever have time to respond to WhatsApps. Okay? What?